Good morning, Teklians and Whovians. Welcome to episode 20. We're going to talk about the Doctor Who 50th anniversary special. If you haven't seen it yet, you better leave now because there's going to be tons of spoilers. Because that's what we're talking about. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, Chris. No teacup this week because I have a big bottle of Gatorade. I just didn't feel like getting one. On the bright side of my end, some new changes. Brand new camera. You will notice the difference in the edited version. And if you're wondering how you will know if you're watching the edited version, well, it'll say Doctor Who right up here, flashing, and it'll say 50th anniversary down here. Or Chris, you gotta edit. Don't forget. Oh, there we go. All right, just there it is. You forgot it the first time, so I did it a second time. 50th anniversary.
You're just giving me more things to edit now.
All right. So now that we got that down, I just want to get right into it. Right into it. If you guys want to ask any questions, opinions, put it in the live chat, because we're going spoilers. Get out if you haven't seen it, because we're starting right away.
Right away.
With the Doctor's name.
Which was established that it was Rebel Flapper Tweeny Doodle.
We already gave that away last episode.
Alright, so should we start it from the beginning?
Where exactly is the beginning in a time story, in like a time travel story?
It was at that part when he went to the dolphin aquarium and saw one of the dolphins wearing his scarf.
The diseased dolphins?
Or was that in the 75th anniversary? I can't remember.
You're just confusing them now. That wasn't this episode.
So overall, what do you think? Was there anything you were upset about with the episode?
Anything I was upset about? I loved it. I was a little upset at first because I didn't completely understand the Tom Baker at the end, like why is he older? And then I went back and actually paid attention to what he was saying. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Now I think I understand.
It sounded like he's a far distant future version of the Doctor, like, because he says something about how, because Matt's doctor says that I never forget a face, and he was like, I know you don't. And perhaps sometime you'll revisit a few of your favorites, you know. So it's almost like in the distant future, he learns how to control his appearance when he regenerates, and he decides to go back and
live out the remainder of his life and grow old as that Doctor.
Yeah, because he says, I could retire and become the great Curator. And he's like, I really think you might.
And then he adds the whole thing, maybe you are me, but then he goes, aha, but then maybe I am you, which is like saying, I came after you.
Yeah, it was something, what was it? Like, when I first watched it, I was like, oh, that's a reference that he used to play this character. And then I was like, no, wait. The way he worded that, because he says, if I were you, and he was like, perhaps I was you, or something, or perhaps you are me. Because he says, perhaps I was you, and you are me.
It was weird wording. And at first I was also confused, like, why is that lady, like, wearing the scarf, the Fourth Doctor's scarf?
Yeah.
I'm like, where's the relevance to that? And then I thought, well, she works for UNIT, and if she works for UNIT, they probably have information about the Doctor, and she was clearly like a Doctor fangirl, so maybe that's why she wore the scarf, because she knew about the Fourth Doctor. That's kind of what I assumed.
I was so hoping that as soon as he got off of that, when the helicopter brought in the TARDIS and he jumped down, and she was standing there wearing the scarf, I was hoping that he would say something about, like, implying that he gave that to her or something when she was little, like, oh, you're still enjoying my scarf. But instead he was just my scarf, and it just happened to be, you know, like, it would have been cooler. But maybe if the Curator is him in the future, maybe he goes back and he brings his scarf back out, and maybe she's like a relative of him, and he gave it to her.
Maybe that would be cool too. But they didn't explain it.
I think that's part of like what Stephen Moffat does. He kind of just throws little things in there that could be used later, and I like that.
So, how does the ordering go for the Doctors now? Where are we at?
We are.
Matt Smith
is the 13th and final incarnation now.
Yeah, should we talk about that spoiler? That was a little giveaway. I don't even think it can be considered a spoiler now. Moffat confirmed it, so
yeah, I
wouldn't call it a spoiler. Matt is the 13th Doctor officially, but we can still call him 11, I guess. He wants He wants people to start forgetting about the name.
Yeah.
I mean the number. He doesn't want people to worry about the number when they think of the Doctor. He wants people to think the Doctor. They're all the same. He doesn't want people to think of numbers when they think of the Doctor.
That's why I'm trying to get in the habit of referring to that actor's Doctor. Like I'm trying to get out of the habit of saying the 10th Doctor or 11th Doctor. I'm trying to say David's Doctor, Tennant's Doctor, Matt's Doctor, which gets confusing when now we have two Peters. people with the first name Peter, and we have 2 Bakers. So it's like you gotta specify a little bit more. But
I usually call them all by last name, and then when it's the Bakers, I say T Baker or C Baker.
Yeah, when you're writing it, it's easier.
It still is interesting what he's doing. So for those who don't know, when we're saying that it's been confirmed Matt is the 13th Doctor, as far as the ordering goes, John Hurt is the 9th Doctor, not Eccleston. And then it goes, Eccleston is the 10th, Tennant is the 11th. And then when Tennant regenerated at the end of, what was it, End of the World or something like that it was called?
It was Journey's End and Stolen Earth, Journey's End.
Yeah, when he regenerated in that scene, and he used the regeneration energy to heal himself, and then he fueled the leftover into the hand so that it wouldn't change him, that still used the regeneration energy. He used half, and the other half he siphoned away, so it was still used, and Moffat said he plans to count that. So the Tennant is actually both portrayed the 11th and 12th Doctor, and then Matt Smith is the 13th.
Well, it might be easier to say he portrayed the 11th and 12th incarnation, or
incarnation. Yeah.
Because that's what you have to have 3 columns now. You have to have Doctor, Regeneration, and Incarnation, because they're all wacky numbers. At the beginning, there's one is off, and then further down the list, now these are off. I made a chart a while back, and it's a mess.
But it's true to the point that Moffat really doesn't want people referring to it as. He really doesn't want people referring to it by a number.
Which is going to be a very hard habit to break, to try and stop referring to them by numbers. By numbers,
and refer to them by the actor's name or something.
Because that was such a big issue when John Hurt came in, and before it was confirmed that he's a past incarnation. People were like, so what? Eccleston is now not the 9th Doctor, he's the 10th, and people were like flipping out. And it's like, you know what? He's the Doctor.
Yeah, and that's really what Moffat, when people talk about it, he doesn't want people talking about, remember that time when the 4th Doctor went and battled the Zygons? But he wants people to be like, remember that time when the Doctor went and did this? Remember that? Because that's what it is. It's a timeline of the Doctor. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want people breaking it up into like almost as though each Doctor is its own show, its own thing. Like, this is all the first Doctor, and let's keep the first Doctor here. This is all the second Doctor, let's keep the second Doctor there. He wants it. It's the Doctor. It's one timeline. It's all together. He wants people to just talk about the Doctor as the Doctor.
Now, there was also, we actually had a discussion about this on a previous thread that I had, where there's some people who are upset because of the storyline where Tennant's Doctor, I was about to say the 10th Doctor, Tennant's Doctor, when he regenerated into Matt's Doctor, where in the End of Time episode where where Gallifrey, the Time Lords brought Gallifrey out of the time lock and caused those events, and then we were talking about how those events and what we just saw in The Name of the Doctor were going on at the exact same time. In the Day of the Doctor, the first time you see the war room, you see the general and they're walking into the war room, and somebody says to him, they say the High Council has called an emergency session. They have plans of their own. So we already saw that emergency session in the End of Time episode. We saw that emergency session. Their plans were to escape the time lock. And Nate, in that discussion, he pointed something out to me that I was misunderstanding as well, where the time lock doesn't have anything to do with like a weapon or anything. Time lock was just, it was kind of like time travel couldn't happen there, because that would kind of be cheating. You couldn't just time travel to the beginning of the war and now suddenly you're more prepared for the Daleks. So I think that's just what time locked means, is that they couldn't cheat with time travel. So the time lock was something separate, and they were finding a way of escaping that, which was that sound in the Master's head, the drumming.
Because that always confused me too, because at first, before we knew about this whole Day of the Doctor stuff, everything that we learned, I was like, how were they tracking a sound if they were time locked? And I was thinking time locked the way you were. Like, it's sort of like it doesn't exist. It exists as time outside of us.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That's how I was thinking of it. I'm like, then how are they tracking the sound? But if it existed as time locked, as in time travel didn't work in that zone, that area, that time period of the war, then it makes a lot more sense.
Oh, yeah.
And also there's the whole thing now with Gallifrey is locked in a moment in time. Mm-hmm. That's what happened in the 50th. So what are your thoughts on that? How does that tie in with what happened in the End of Time? Did End of Time happen before they get locked in that moment, is what you're thinking? End of Time happened during the Time War, not after they were locked in this moment that happened at the Day of the Doctor.
Well, I think they were, think of them two parts of Gallifrey, two different rooms, two different buildings. They're just going on at the same time. This building over here, this is the High Council, and they're talking to. They're trying to track the drumming. They implanted that sound into the Master's head, so that they can lock onto a physical thing outside of their time lock, because the war was such a massive. It's like a fixed point in time. You know, he encounters a fixed point in time, and he's like, some moments you can't change. So maybe this was the time lock.
That's like 100 years you can't change, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like, instead of a moment, that was 100 years they couldn't be changed, and that's kind of what the time lock meant. That whole period couldn't be.
I think the time lock expands a huge region of space, so they just can't hop in a TARDIS and say, I'm out of here. They'd have to take a long way and actually travel in a ship. You know, they can't just disappear out of that time. So the High Council is talking about transporting the entire planet out somehow. At the same time, the War Room is talking, like they discover that there was a breach in their vault, and they say that the Doctor has stolen the moment. Now, in the end of time, the High Council gets notified. They say the Doctor is in possession of the moment, and he intends to use it. So that happened first. That happened first over here too.
Yeah.
So then later, it's now like near the end of the war, and all 13 Doctors show up. All 13 incarnations show up, and they're gonna trap Gallifrey in a single moment in time. And at that point, they were on the verge of being destroyed, so there was no time to alert the High Council. So the High Council was planning on transporting Gallifrey, which we saw in the end of time. They start appearing on Earth, so they're about to do that. And then in the War Room, they tell the General their plan, and remember, he just said, like, they're under attack, and he's like, just do it, Doctor, just do it. Yeah. So they do it, and now they're frozen in a moment in time. So like now they're all like frozen in time. They're like on pause. So no time is passing for them. So now the Doctor goes on his epic journey of trying to find Gallifrey. And sometime way in the distant future, whenever writers and the story decide to release Gallifrey from this moment, they're going to pop out and the Doctor is going to save him. And now they're unpaused. So from their point of view, nothing's happened. So the High Council is going to still continue their plan because they were just on the verge of making that happen. So when the Doctor frees them from that moment, Gallifrey, they're going to start disappearing and going back into time to that point in the end of time, which caused Tennant's Doctor to regenerate.
And then they'll get kicked back.
Yeah, then he'll see them reappear because the Master knocked them back into the time lock, which was, what was going on now. So when they come back, when the Doctor finally frees them, the Master's going to be on Gallifrey.
All right, now let's go into the chat for a bit because they're going off without us while we were talking about that. So I want to pay them some attention to. There's things in there. How do we think the next 50 years will progress? Do you think Capaldi is the Valeyard? And my answer to that is no, definitely not. Because the Valeyard isn't the Doctor. The Valeyard is a manifestation. It's not like the Doctor stops existing and there's a Valeyard. When the Doctor regenerates, a manifestation forms from all of his darkness in his past, everything like dark within him, and forms a whole separate entity, which is the Valeyard. Which makes me wonder if the Valeyard supposedly happened when the Doctor goes from his 12th to 13th incarnation. Then does the Valeyard already exist from when Tennant regenerated into Matt Smith? Because if you follow canon, that is when the Valeyard should have came into existence, is when Tennant regenerated to Matt Smith, if Matt Smith is the 13th.
But it says between his 12th and final incarnations. So final isn't actually specifying 13th. It could mean, now obviously, because Capaldi exists, he's going to be a 14th incarnation, right? Or 13th. Wait, I'm all confused now.
Yeah, so the Valeyard could appear anywhere between the 12th and final incarnation. It's not have to be between the 12th and 13th.
If we assume that Tom Baker was playing the very, very, very last incarnation of him when he decided to retire and become the Curator, that could be his 150th incarnation. So if we assume that's his final, Valeyard could exist any time between Matt Smith's era and the very end, because 12th and final be a very wide range now. So he could already exist, or he could exist.
And we don't know yet. All right, so he comes somewhere between 12th and final. I thought it was 12th and 13th, but if it was worded as 12th and final, then it could come into existence at any time. What is this YouTube video that was posted? I still don't think the truth about the Valeyard. I don't have time to watch that. Alright, but yeah, the Valeyard isn't the Doctor, it's a manifestation of darkness inside the Doctor that forms while he's regenerating. So I don't see Peter Capaldi as the Valeyard.
Especially because I don't think the Valeyard would have showed up and helped them freeze Gallifrey in that moment.
Yeah, definitely not. I don't know, they're still talking in the chat, they're saying it makes you wonder, especially since he's technically the final Doctor. But that's not the case. Technically, the way Moffat says it is, Matt Smith is technically the final Doctor. And now we have to look for how he's going to break past that barrier of 13 incarnation limit.
Yeah.
So
when the whole regeneration limit was mentioned, it was mainly just a way of not making him an invincible superhero. It was making it, if they just said he could completely heal and regenerate whenever he's injured, then, you know, they could be running, he sprained his ankle, and just be like, oh, I need to regenerate because that kind of hurts. So they wanted it to have a limit so that he uses them only when he absolutely must. So that was the only reason there was a limit. So now, if there's not going to be much of a limit, then they need to, however he comes across getting more regenerations, it needs to be something that he can't just do whenever he feels like it.
Even if he does get more regenerations, I still think it'll be bound by the rules of he can't just regenerate, because he can't even do that now, can he? He can't just choose to regenerate. Doesn't he have to be dying to regenerate?
I'm not sure. I know in one of the classic stories with Romana, when she was going
just trying on different faces.
Yeah, almost like she was going through different outfits.
Yeah.
I don't know if she just knows some secret to not using regenerations, or if all of that was just deciding on how that regeneration's going to look.
Yeah, I think it was mostly done for humor and not for like thinking about the show's still going to be here 50 years later.
Yeah.
Or at that point, it was like 20 years later, 25. But I definitely think they're going to have to do something about that. But also, I don't think I would see the Doctor ever wanting to just regenerate because he gets hurt anyway. Because you've seen the way the Doctor acts when he's regenerating. He acts like he's losing everything that he is. And that's even how he explains it. He dies and somebody else comes strutting along.
Yeah.
All the same memories, but it's not him anymore. He's dead and this is somebody new. So
from his point of view, it's like he is dying because he knows I'm not gonna be me anymore. I'm gonna be somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. From his point of view, it's as though he is dying. What else? They asked something in here. What did we think about Hurt? How did you feel about John Hurt and his portrayal?
I thought he did amazing. He totally comes off as like a worn out, tired from the war.
And he truly portrays that thing like, I've seen so much evil, so much darkness that I don't want to go on. He really does a good job of showing that, you know, he doesn't want to see anything else. He's seen enough.
I loved how there were always two of them picking on one of them.
Yeah, that was well done. I was kind of hoping there would be like more Doctors that were able to keep secret that would be in it. But it worked really well the way the three of them got along. Are people still in the chat?
Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about the whole Valeyard thing, they're not even watching the live stream.
Yeah, I just posted the link because
it's like we were answering everything they were saying in the video, not on the chat.
I loved the when they were all three trapped in the cell, and they did that where Hurt's Doctor scanned the door. They put this calculation in the sonic screwdriver, so the screwdriver's sitting there calculating this complex thing for 400 years, and then they don't even use it because the door was unlocked anyway.
Yeah, they do this wicked, complicated, intelligent thing to try to figure out a way to get out of there, and the whole entire time the door's unlocked, and none of them even thought to check the door. Like three of these people in the room, and none of them even thought to check the door.
She's like, 3 of you in here, and none of you thought to check to see if the door was locked? And Hurt was like, it should have been.
Yeah, but they come up with this like insanely intelligent idea to get out, and they didn't even have to.
Yeah. Which it was funny, but it was also put in there just so that you can be like, wow, they use that same method later, which was very brilliant.
Wait, they used that same method later?
Yeah, to calculate how to freeze Gallifrey.
Oh yeah, they used they went back to like the first Doctor and had him or whatever. Or
yeah, because they said that making those kind of calculations would take a very long time, and he said, hundreds and hundreds of years. So they must have input the data for the calculations and then gave it back to the Hartnell's Doctor and just said, hey, hold on to this and let it calculate for like 1,000 years or something.
Yeah.
And I think it would be awesome if when Capaldi takes over, if one day they're just like traveling and whatever, and then all of a sudden there's a little ding, and he goes over and he picks up one of those clear cubes, and he's like, it's done. And then he's just like leaves Claire, and he's like, I'll be back. And then he could just disappear for a little bit and come right back. But I want that to be like, that was the moment the calculation was done. So and then he shows up at that battle and then uploads that calculation to all of his previous TARDISes.
Yeah, because it's obviously his generation when the calculation was done, not Matt's, because that's why he had to show up. So I really want to see that in the show. Maybe we'll even see it like maybe in like his first episode or something. He just disappears for what to us seems like a second, but for him he's saving Gallifrey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Clara would probably even understand that. I don't know. I would like to see them fit that in there. What was your favorite part of the episode?
Oh, that's tough. Probably that battle scene. I can't tell you how like excited I was at that moment. My wife and I are both sitting on the couch like jumping up and down like, oh my god. As soon as you hear the Hartnell's voice and he shows up and he's like, this is the doctor. It's like, oh my god. And then they all start showing up and then then the general is like, all 12 of them. And they're like, no sir, all 13. And then you see his eyes and I was like, what?
Just the eyes. Yes, I was so hoping for more than that so I can be like, is there a bowler hat? Bowler? Capaldi. Hashtag Capaldi needs a bowler. Just wait, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah. Capaldi needs a bowler. Let's hashtag that, everybody. Probably won't happen, but we can dream and hope.
I was totally thinking that we were actually going to see Capaldi in there, but then I was like, nah, it's probably his outfit and everything probably still needs to be a surprise because we need to see him change into that. I love the little attitudes they were giving each other. Like how I said, there was always between Hurt, Tennant, and Smith. There was always two of them picking on one of them. So there's always he's always like Hurt says to Smith, he's like, "Are you capable of speaking without flapping your hands about?"
That was funny because it's true. That's Matt Smith's personality. His doctor is just it's like hands everywhere when he talks.
My wife and I were talking about the way when you watch Tennant's doctor interact with his TARDIS console and then Smith's doctor, it's like when you see them like doing things like Tennant's doctor would he would get a foot up there and like push something with his leg, like practically like climbing onto his TARDIS console.
Yeah. And
I was like, when you look at the two of them, it's like Tennant is like, I have all of these limbs, I'm going to use all of them. And Matt's doctor is like, I have all of these limbs, I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, basically that's a pretty good way of putting it.
And I love when they all encircle them and they point their screwdrivers and he's like, will you put those down? He's like, they're screwdrivers. What are you going to do, assemble a cabinet at them?
Yeah. And that's a good point. What are they going to do? I don't like in the episodes where the screwdriver is used almost as a weapon.
Yeah. And he always does that. He always he just points it and it's like, what are you going to do?
I think my favorite part was the part with Tom Baker. I was like a schoolgirl in that parking lot. I liked to remember saying, whoa! I was just like, what? I had to tell my wife who it is, but I was just like, I knew it was Tom Baker as soon as I heard the voice.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard the voice. I didn't even need it to show the person. As soon as I heard the voice, I was like, what? Hat off and everything. Just hat off, like, what is going on? Why is he here? Why is he old? And then he starts explaining it, and I didn't catch it the first time, so I had to go back and rewatch it, but it was like, mind blown.
Yeah, my wife and I were looking at each other, and I was like, this is amazing, but I don't understand why. And then I watched it again, and I was like, ooh, I didn't catch that. I was too excited about everything else.
I was literally too excited, just like jumping up and down, like I wasn't even listening. I was like, what? Holy crap, what's going on?
Seriously, as soon as the Hartnell's doctor showed up, my wife and I were sitting right next to each other on the couch. We were both like bouncing up and down. We were like, ah!
Yeah.
It was kind of ridiculous.
One thing that really, really confused me is the time in which the episodes are taking place.
Oh, right.
Because when we left off at The Name of the Doctor, they had just entered the time stream, but they hadn't left yet. And they were talking about how the doctor was going to help her get out. And I was like, wait a minute. And then when this episode starts off, it's just Clara as a teacher at a school, and he's going to pick her up. And I was like, where are we? And so it makes me wonder if the events of the day of the Doctor take place before the Name of the Doctor. But in that case, why did Clara not recognize Hurt when she saw him when she stepped into the time stream? Because while all the Hurt and Tennant forgot, their memories were lost as soon as they went back to their own timelines.
Right.
Smith retained his own, and so Clara would have too. Mm-hmm. So why did she not recognize him?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense either way, because...
Matt also mentioned, I think, at one point, you've seen him before or something like that, when they first went through, or he came through to them or something. Actually, he mentioned something to her, like, you've seen him before or something like that.
Yeah, like, there's all these clues in the Day of the Doctor that hint to it came after the name of the Doctor. But then how the hell did they get out? Because they jumped into that thing, and, like, it was going to say to be continued, and it was supposed to pick up from there, because...
Yeah.
Matt regenerates because of what happens at Trenzalore. And we've seen the Christmas trailer where he's on Trenzalore.
Because literally, that's what happened in Day of the Doctor, is they went to Trenzalore. That's where they were. They were on Trenzalore. I mean, Name of the Doctor, not Day of the Doctor. And then Day of the Doctor takes place. They can't figure out where in the timeline it's taking place. And then at the very end, he says to Tennant, when Tennant asks where he's headed, he says Trenzalore.
Yeah.
The place where he goes, the place where we're buried.
Mm-hmm.
And we're implying that he hasn't been there yet. He's going to Trenzalore. That's where he's headed. So that makes it sound like this happened before the Name of the Doctor.
But then I wonder if he's asking, like, he's saying we're headed to Trenzalore, as in he's specifying Tennant's point of view because he hasn't been there yet. Kind of like, that's where I am now, so you're headed to Trenzalore.
And then it's still, why did this episode not explain how they got out of that time stream and everything that happened after? I don't know.
Yeah.
That part still has me confused.
I was so confused. The moment it started, I was excited because it looked, they went back to, like, the very first episode's intro. And I was all excited. And then I saw Clara. And, of course, I'm excited to see Clara. And then I was like, but wait a minute, how? I was like, this doesn't make sense with what we just saw.
Yeah. Well, I was excited at first also because it started off with that theme song playing.
Yeah.
And then, just like in the original, it had the police officer walking by the sign for
like the first episode.
Foreman Dump, which is what Susan Foreman, you know? That's where the TARDIS was. She lived in the TARDIS, which was in that dump.
Yeah.
And it was like the officer walking by, and then it goes to the school, which is also how the episode started, where Susan was at the school, but then in this case it's Clara teaching.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the post later on, but it was actually, after the episode was done, someone went through, and it's actually on the board, she's writing no more.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but I don't really get the timeline at all. It wasn't really explained, and I don't understand what's going on.
I'm betting it'll be explained more when it finally comes back for the Christmas.
I hope so. Because that's what I thought. Like, I knew the 50th was going to have something to do with the Time War, but I also thought it was going to have a lot to do with Trenzalore. I thought it was going to have a lot to do with, the place where the Doctor dies, and why, when he entered his time stream, it only went up to Matt Smith, and you didn't see any Doctors past that. It was supposed to be his whole time stream. And I thought that's what the Day of the Doctor was going to be about, with ties to the Time War. But it's like they just kind of stopped that whole idea to do this, and then they're going to go back for the Christmas and do the Christmas one, which is obviously going to be back on Trenzalore again.
What if they were happening at the same time? Think about when they first got to Trenzalore and they saw that thingy, the spirally thingy. And he kept saying that if you jump in there, when you jump in there, you die. You no longer exist, which is why you were saying that's why we only saw up to Smith's Doctor.
Yeah, because when he went in after Clara, it ended his own timeline.
Right. So,
which makes me think Capaldi is like a new first Doctor almost.
Yeah, like he's starting a whole new cycle.
Maybe that's how they explain it. Maybe when he gets out, he regenerates upon breaking out or something. And it's like starting over with a whole new set of lives or something. I don't know. But anyway, go back to what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like it would start over with he's now a whole new entity, like a copy. Yeah. But remember how he says that when you jump in there, you die, and you're split off into shards that are copies of you. What if, because we saw the Great Intelligence jump in, he split off into shards that went throughout the Doctor's timeline. Clara did the same thing. She went split off to defeat the Great Intelligence. So what if when the Doctor jumped in there, he didn't split into shards throughout his timeline. He just split off into a shard to the most important part of his timeline.
And took Clara with him.
Yeah. So maybe what if they're kind of still in there, but they're like a shard splitting off into the Time War to fix something, and they're still in there and they're going to come out.
So basically, that's a great idea. So basically what you're saying is, because they're in the timeline of the Doctor, it's actually the shard of Matt Smith and the shard of Clara that's interacting with Tennant and Hurd, and it's not actually the Doctor himself because they're still in that timeline.
Yeah.
That's a real interesting thought. That's definitely a possibility, and it would explain all of my confusions that I have about the way the last episode ended. and where we are in the timeline and the order of things.
It could also contribute to an explanation of why the timelines are out of sync, so nobody's going to remember anything except for Matt. Because maybe this shard had something to do with pulling, I don't know. I'm trying to get somewhere with that.
Yeah, but then also, if that is the case, if it was his shard interacting with his timeline, how was Capaldi there if it was still within his time? If he was still in that stream, it would still only go up to Smith.
Right, but now that he's a shard, maybe being a shard, a copy, it resets you as a new entity. So maybe that Matt's Doctor that we are actually seeing in the Day of the Doctor is the first of a new set of regenerations. So maybe when we see him regenerate, he's now regenerating into his second.
Yeah.
So Capaldi could. So there would be two Matts. There would be the original Matt that was at the end of his final incarnation.
13th life, and then the new Matt comes out as the first Matt.
A new Matt is now the number one of a new set of regenerations, and then Capaldi is now the second regeneration of that whole new set.
That would be awesome. And that would seriously fuck everybody up who cares about the numbers.
Yeah.
Everybody would be like, Capaldi's the second Doctor? What?
Because now Matt Smith would now be the 13th and first.
And the first, yeah.
Capaldi would, or what, 12th and first? I'm so confused now.
Oh my god, my head hurts
the 12th
now.
and the first. Capaldi would be the 13th and the second.
This is why I look forward to Christmas every year. Now, since I'm a Doctor Who fan, for that, I don't like Christmas.
I hate
but
Christmas.
Doctor Who. So every year it's like Christmas special, Christmas special, Christmas special. I'm not thinking Christmas. I'm just thinking, let's get to that Doctor Who Christmas special.
Yeah.
How are we looking on time? Did you start your timer?
I did start my timer. Let's see what my timer says. 42 minutes. We're doing good on episodes lately.
On time. Want to wrap it up? I don't know if you have anything planned with your wife today.
I think we could wrap it up, unless there's anything else thinking from the episode.
We covered a lot of it.
It looks like in the Christmas special we're going to see all kinds of villains. It looks like there's going to be Daleks, Weeping Angels, Silence, Cybermen, the new Cybermen too.
Before we go though, one thing we didn't talk about: Bad Wolf.
Oh right, we should talk about that.
I've heard theories like when Rose became Bad Wolf, she also went into the moment to give the moment sentient factor to it. That's definitely, I'm still really confused on that, but I was kind of happy when Billie Piper was back and she came back and she was playing Bad Wolf, not playing Rose Tyler. I was kind of excited. I actually thought she did a great job in that role.
Oh yeah. I loved her personality in there.
Yeah, I definitely did too, and I think she did a great job in that. So I was kind of happy to see that, and I think it was very well done.
Yeah, it was. But see, I was thinking about this with the timeline, because now she puts this word, Bad Wolf, into his head. Yeah. And now he regenerates, both of them regenerates into Eccleston's Doctor, which I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that it is, but a lot of people are saying that if you don't actually see it, then they could wedge another incarnation in there, but I'm pretty confident that he regenerates into Eccleston's Doctor. So
because Eccleston, the whole thing with him is, as soon as he hears Bad Wolf, he's all worried and concerned.
Yeah, because that word is in his head now.
It's never explained why, but Bad Wolf to him is something horrible. Yeah. And it's never explained why at all in any of the episodes. And now we kind of have that explanation for why when the Ninth Doctor hears Bad Wolf, he's like, no, what's going on? He becomes instantly worried, he becomes instantly fearful.
It's like something implanted into his subconscious, because this happened, he has no memory of what happened, because now he leaves that, regenerates, and he has the memory, he believes that he just wiped out all the Time Lords, even though he really had just saved them. But those words, Bad Wolf, have been implanted into his head. So now, with Eccleston's Doctor, what we've seen, he now sees Bad Wolf, and that triggers something in his head that he feels that's significant, and he doesn't know why. It's implanted.
Because as far as he's concerned, Bad Wolf was the entity in the moment. So as far as he's concerned, Bad Wolf was the entity that helped him destroy, the way he sees it, Gallifrey. So to him, when he sees Bad Wolf, he's thinking of the time he destroyed, and I don't know, I guess he's thinking of the moment when he hears Bad Wolf, I think. But
the other thing, with the moment, I'm wondering if, because they kept referring to they're gonna trap Gallifrey in a single moment in time, so it's making me wonder if this is what it was meant to do all along.
Yeah.
If when it was
and
created,
he thought it was supposed to make it destroy it, and all along that's what it was supposed to do.
yeah, like if he actually would have pushed the big red button, nothing would have happened.
Definitely a possibility. As you can tell, it's winter here and cold, so we can't take Liam out to the playground anymore when I do the show.
Now, but I was also wondering if this was what the reason why what the moment was for all along, and I was also wondering if sometime in the future, in the Doctor's distant future, he kind of like how when he becomes the curator and he goes back to leave that painting to have that discussion with his past self to guide him into going and finding Gallifrey. So I'm wondering if sometime in his distant future self, after he rescues Gallifrey, he goes back into Gallifrey's ancient history and actually creates the box of the moment that in the future, from the box's point of view, Rose's bad wolf manifestation thing will go into.
So you're saying in the future he goes and creates the moment so that in his past incarnation, in the future he goes back in time to before the moment existed to create the moment so that when it's needed, it's there.
Yeah.
So that Rose, when she becomes Bad Wolf, has it to go into.
And that's why it would be called the moment, as a way to trigger that into his future self, or from his point of view, his past self.
That's a different possibility too.
And maybe he just kind of, maybe he took on a different name just for that time, so that they didn't realize that was the Doctor, and he created this weapon, and he kind of played it off like it was a galaxy eater, so that they must never use it. Don't touch it. Just kind of scare them so that they leave it alone for millions of years, so that sometime in the future he takes it as this big deal kind of thing, and Rose's bad wolf conscience is in there, and she helps guide him to do the right thing, which was freeze Gallifrey in a moment in time.
Yeah. But also, I think that when he does become the curator, though, it might be more along the lines that he actually is becoming the curator of that particular place, not just a new name. A new name, and that's what he's doing, because in the episode what he says is, I'd be the great curator, I could retire and be the curator of this place. And then that's when Baker comes in and goes, I really think you might.
Yeah.
Because that place is the place that the Doctor, not the curator, but the Doctor opposed, because where he is in that underground place with all the technology that the Doctor didn't want the humans to have. Mm-hmm. And basically what it's saying is, at the end of his life, he basically comes back as the curator, not the Doctor, to oversee all this stuff, as though he's watching over it to make sure it's not used for the wrong thing the whole time. So the whole time, he's actually, the future him, the last him, has been there watching this stuff that all the previous hims were against. Were, didn't want there at all, didn't want the humans to have.
And it makes you think that he could take on a new name in the distant future, and he could live for hundreds of years doing this thing. So it's like there could be future versions of him all over throughout time and space, making sure they guide his past incarnations along the right path.
That's true also. There could be versions of him out there known as the Architect.
Yeah.
Or, Actually, it was funny because the Curator was one of the characters in a little thing I was doing online for a couple days. And then I saw the 50th anniversary, and I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. Because in mine, the Curator was like this evil guy. He was like the bad guy and everything. But and then I saw that, and I literally just started this like 3 or 4 days before the 50th aired, and I was calling the character the Curator. And then I saw this, and I'm like,
don't want to give him an evil name now.
Yeah, because like in mine, what was going to happen, because I hadn't revealed yet, was he was going to be the Curator, because that's what he did, was he curated and he collected civilizations. Like, everyone thought he was destroying civilizations, but he's actually like collecting them, is how I was going to tie into him doing. But it was like,
did he like miniaturize them and put them up as kind of like this little Christmas decorative
No,
villages?
I was actually planning on him doing exactly almost what they did in the 50th anniversary, and he was locking them away in separate pockets of time. So everyone thought that they were being destroyed and ruined, but they were actually somewhere else. And then that's sort of what happened with the 50th, and I was like, I should have written this, what the fuck? Because that's literally what I was planning to write out. My character, the Curator, I already had the name written out and everything, and that's what was going to happen. I wrote out he was the destroyer of civilizations, but it was going to be revealed he was really taking them from time, almost like in the end, what is it, the end of the world or whatever it was, or Journey's End. And he was locking them away, sort of like in a little bubble outside of the universe, like in The Doctor's Wife, that little bubble. And he was creating little bubbles for all these civilizations that he was stealing and sort of lording over and studying and watching how civilizations develop, and that's what he was going to be doing, and that's why he was called the Curator. But then I just decided to stop that when I saw Tom Baker was the Curator.
New story.
Yeah, start over, redo. All right,
Should
I think
we
we're done.
should we do hat tips? Do you have a hat tip? I have a hat tip.
Nah, you have a hat tip. What's your hat tip?
My hat tip is for the movie An Adventure in Time and Space.
That is a good hat tip.
I highly recommend that. It is documentary, but it's not really done like a documentary. It's done as like a recreation. It's a reenactment of the beginning of and the making of the very first Doctor Who episode. It's an amazing story, and I highly recommend you watch it.
Really sad too. You know, at the end, try not to cry, but you won't be able to hold it back. My hat tip is from Big Bad Toy Store, and it is for the ninth Doctor, John Hurt's.
The War Doctor.
Yeah, the War Doctor Sonic Screwdriver. And now that I pull it up, it's the bottom of it almost looks like there's a fez on the bottom of the. I'm looking at it has a little red light, like a pen light at the top, and it's silver structure. Then the bottom is just a little red cap. It almost looks like there's a fez on the bottom of the screwdriver, a tiny little fez. But that is my hat tip. I actually one day, so like a year from now, I'm probably gonna get it.
I have to get it now. I have all these Sonic screwdrivers.
Yeah, you have all the other ones.
Yeah.
You have the temporal. You have the laser too, right? Do you?
No, not the laser.
You don't have the laser. We have all the Sonics. I think, most of them.
And I have this one that I built with the build your own. I really love this one because it's like a combination of Tennant and Smith's Sonic because it's got this part and it's like the longer, but it's also like the blue and silver.
Yeah.
White.
Yeah.
I love this one. I also have this little pen light that I found, so I consider this to be the second Doctor Sonic screwdriver.
Because this was just a pen light. That's all it was.
Yeah.
That's really what they took was they took a pen light.
I always have that with me, and I kind of just whip it out whenever the Sonic, I mean.
I want to get the third and fourth Doctors, too.
Gotta catch them all.
Yeah. Fifth didn't use one, the sixth didn't use one, the seventh didn't use one, the eighth used the fourth Doctor's one for a moment, just like a brief second when he locked the case that the ashes of the Master were supposed to be in or whatever. He used the Sonic screwdriver to do it or something, but he just used it for a moment. It was the fourth Doctor's.
Didn't he have one in the little mini-sode?
He did, actually, I think. I think you're right. Was the one that he had in the mini-sode the John Hurt's, maybe?
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it, but I want to get them all. And then I haven't watched that much of the first Doctor, but I heard he had a device that did basically what the Sonic screwdriver does, but it was a ring. So I'm not sure about that, but I have to look that up, too.
A Sonic ring?
Yeah. But I don't think it was called that.
A Sonic the Hedgehog ring?
Oh, that's cool. I typed in First Doctor ring and I got a whole bunch of rings with like Gallifreyan symbols on it and stuff. And there was a ring with like a stone on it, it looked like.
Yeah, I can see. I just found a picture of that.
I don't know what it was supposed to do, but I heard it did a lot of the stuff that the screwdriver now does.
Signet ring mounted a large blue crystal. Wore it in his first incarnation. Soon discarded it after his regeneration into his second incarnation. It had several special abilities. It could supply power to the TARDIS, to its main doors and control. If given the correct spectrum of light, it could unjam the TARDIS's locking mechanism, protect him from electrical shocks.
That's cool. But yeah, I knew he had some type of device thing.
He was forced to sell his ring in exchange for French Revolution-style clothes when he arrived in Paris. But it was returned to him the next day, in the Reign of Terror.
And I think with that, we are done.
Alright, so we're going to be off for a while.
Yes, it is our last episode of the season, episode 20 already. Feels like we only just started doing the show, but it is now the 20th episode, so we're going to come back in about a month, something like that, with season 2. And we're probably going to start off with another Doctor Who episode, since that'll be right after the Christmas special.
Yeah, we're going to start with the Christmas special. That's going to be January 5th. Same time, same day, same point in time and space. Not really.
Not at all.
Same point in space, different point in time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be doing it right now.
You should all definitely tune in for that too.
We're going to talk about the Christmas special, and we're going to talk about Peter Capaldi and our thoughts on, our thoughts on first impressions and seeing him. It's just going to be exciting.
Join us.
Hat tip. Final hat tip. Tip my hat.
To all of you for watching Doctor Who.